This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek. Last year in San Francisco, there were 2 days of hearings of workers testifying against racial discrimination in the city and county of San Francisco. Last week, Angela Alioto filed a lawsuit against the city and county of San Francisco for systemic racism and for action to defend black workers. We go now to an interview with Angela Alioto, Brenda Barros, and Cheryl Thornton, who are 2 workers in the city and county of San Francisco.
This is about fighting publicly and fighting in federal court and making a difference where after we win, they can't just have status quo. Consent decrees don't allow status quo. I just think these cases are going to change it. And I think they're going to change it because it's not just about the money. It's about the humiliation of elected officials in San Francisco from the mayor on down, discriminating against black people because it's not convenient.
I just want to say that there's 8 of us now, and that we have a lot of evidence that is very credible. And it's different when you have 1 person versus 8. And you also have a an attorney that expertise is in civil rights. So the reason that we wanted to move forward with this complaint is because we need to have a change, and our system is broken. The civil service system is broken, and black workers are the people who are being harmed the most in the system. And I want to see our city be what it used to be, where there were families, there was diversity in the city and county of San Francisco. And I just don't see that the city has a heart anymore. It's lost its heart. And I just want to, so I think Angela can bring changes to bring equity and equality back to San Francisco.
And Brenda, you have said that in your history in San Francisco, you weren't able to get a loan to even buy a house in San Francisco. You had to move out of San Francisco, and you as well have faced discrimination in the city and county of San Francisco. Do you think that the city is going to go along with really changing?
I'm at a point now, which led me to do this, is that, I'm one of those workers that was, a diligent city worker. I tried everything I could to work with the city and all kind of things. I've been on all kind of committees, been to all those meetings, and I've said, even in those meetings, that it's not, whatever you're doing up here, it's not making it down to the day-to-day worker. And so, even for me, it's gotten bad. It got to the point to where almost every black person I run across, and no matter what level even, they're all talking about the same thing. And it doesn't matter if you have a master's degree, it doesn't matter if you lucked up and got maybe a job where you are an administrator or something. We're all facing that same kind of discrimination within the workplace. We are all hearing the comments. We're all being like, well, maybe if something special comes up, it's never you that's picked, it's somebody else. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's the day-to-day. Since we filed this lawsuit, honestly, and it's gone public, people from all different levels, even people in other races, have come up to say thank you. I know this is hard for you to do. I know the kind of person you are, but they are thankful because everyone knows that what's happening now it just can't go on anymore, and we have to do something strong to stop it. We've tried talking, that's not working. We tried dealing with people, that's not working. So if somebody has to force them to change their behavior, then that's my goal in this. With me, people say it's not about money with me. With me, it's about changing this system permanently making permanent changes to make people's lives better, Black people's lives better. And and just so facto, it's going to make everybody's lives better, all the workers' lives better. Because if we have fairness in the workplace, then it helps everybody. But the Black people are taking the brunt of all this. We're getting treated the worst. And that's why you see probably Black workers standing up. We see others sometimes too, but it's mostly the Black workers who are bearing the brunt of all of this stuff, being treated the worst, like she said, fired the least. Even if you happen to get a position where you would think that you would be respected in it, you're not. So, you stay because we all need money. That's why we stay. We all need to take care of our families. But, what we have to deal with, I've seen so many Black workers who end up with high blood pressure. And it's because they're under so much stress at work that at a certain point, if you don't have a way to get it out, it starts messing with your health. That's what happened. That was my straw when it started messing with my health. That was it. It's like something has to be done. This cannot continue. It cannot continue. And I thank Angela a lot for stepping up to help us, because we've been talking about this for a long time. But she is honestly the first person that's really stepped up to help us, and for that I thank her very much.
And Brenda, you were involved in years now, fighting against workplace bullying, having classes, trying to get the city and the union to take that seriously. Yet, you feel that this recent pandemic has exacerbated the issue of bullying in the workplace and also discrimination against Black workers? Well,
definitely exacerbated the unfairness in the system. I mean, it's been glaring with this, like who gets put out front, like in the beginning when COVID first came out in DPH, it was clear that predominantly the people that they were throwing out there before there was any mask, before there was any protection, were Black people.
Yep.
So, that made it glaring and it was like, that this is just not right. Fairness. We all want to do our part too, but, to feel like, and I asked somebody, my boss, why me? Why did you pick me for that position? I have not gotten an answer yet to throw out there in the beginning, with no protection, sitting at a desk in a lobby, being exposed all day long. They haven't been able to give me an answer.
But you know the answer, Brenda.
Right.
I know the answer because of who I am.
Brenda's right, because I was working at Southeast Health Center, and the only people they asked to go out there were Black workers. There was a white worker who volunteered to go. It was raining, but they said no. These were the designated people. And we had no protection. They had no patient tracing plan. They had no mask, no gloves, no PPE, nothing. They just threw us out there because in their eyes, we're worthless. We're invisible and we're expendable.
So you're disposable workers.
Mm-hmm. That's how I felt. And when I went to the powers that be and I complained about it, I got nothing. I was removed. I was retaliated against and removed.
And Angela, Angela, I assume you saw the hearings last year of virtually hundreds of workers testifying, putting themselves on the line and testifying about retaliation, bullying, brazen attacks, verbal, even physical assaults against workers. Are you shocked, Angela, that after that hearing, there weren't any real changes made? Because that hearing was in front of the present Board of Supervisors. That hearing was in front of the Mayor London Breed.
No, I'm not shocked. That's why we're here today. Steve, we have a lawsuit. We have specific facts in that lawsuit. We have to prove those specific facts are based on the color of the skin of all my 8 plaintiffs, okay? That's what we are focused on. We're not focused on bullying, and we're not focused on unfair treatment to all workers. This is about the way Black people are treated as literally invisible at the workplace. So it goes way beyond any of, I mean, with all due respect, Steve, you can hit me in the arm, but if you discriminate against me for 10 years, it's going to hurt me a heck of a lot more. Discrimination can absolutely ruin lives. And I'm not surprised at all. I sat in a DCCC here meeting where all these women testified, and nobody did anything after that meeting. Nobody did
You're
anything.
saying that the DCCC, these are politically active people in government, in city government and other government, and they didn't do anything after this testimony at that hearing.
That's right. They created a committee. Oh, another committee. You know what, Steve? I think these committees, I think putting Brenda and Cheryl and Kim and all of my clients on these committees is yet another racial act. As a trial lawyer, I add up the Adverse Employment Act and what is done based on race. I mean, one of my clients is on 7 committees to make life better for Black people. Every one of those committees is a racist act because they know very well they're not going to do anything. Because if you can show me anything that has come out of all of these committees, and there are literally dozens of equality, equity, affirmative act, whatever. Show me one thing in the last 20 years that has come out of it, other than making fun of Black people by treating them like they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to hear about the Board of Supervisors or the mayor or the DCCC or any elected officials. None of them have done anything, and this has gone on for 20 years plus.
Do you feel the same way, Cheryl and Brenda?
Absolutely. If you look at the outward migration report, the 53 reports in 55 years, and all that's happened is Black people are being removed from San Francisco.
Right.
So it's gone on too long.
The ethnic cleansing of the city and county of San Francisco. Is that what it is? Of
It's
Black
the
workers?
ethnic, and I think that being on the committees, it feels like, and this is what it feels like. It feels like, you talk a good game, you hear people saying all the right words, but then when it comes to actual actions, there's nothing.
No, but don't you see how insulting it is to keep putting the same people on equity committees? I mean, don't you see how basically they're using Black people in order to look like they're doing something? That's a racial act.
And it's causing further harm because we're set up to think that we're actually going to make change. And when we get to the end of it, it's a bust. Nothing happens. Just like our mayor's task force, it ended up nowhere.
And were you on the mayor's task force? Who was on the mayor's task force?
I was on it.
And what happened at it?
Well, I mean, there was talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And, at one point, I think I even said, tired of all this talking. When is there going to be some action? You know what I mean? There got to be some actions to this. It's the little few actions that have been taken are so minor to where it's almost non-existent. I mean, it's just little things to make you think they're doing something. It's looking at the same data over and over and over again. From different committees looking at the same data over and over and over again. But, no plan, no real plan on how you're going to reverse this damage that you have done to the Black worker.
So, Steve, I wanted to add, in 2018, the workforce report was dismal. Now, they knew this, and they saw the hearing and all the people that came. So they knew that there was going to be a report in 2020. And the only thing that they changed is they added de-identification in so that nobody could see the eligible list. And we fought against de-identification, but we lost. They implemented it because they claimed that in Washington, Seattle, Washington, it made a difference with increase the diversity pool. But, the 2020 data came out. Brenda and I are in another committee, as Angela put, Fairness in the Workplace. And Mawali 12B, I think he's the person who, DHR, who's the head of policy, said that actually de-identification did not work and things were worse, the data. So then we saw the data. So I'm just here to say that you can have all these committees that you want, but until you really want to make change, nothing's going to change. And I see all these committees as a sham for equity. I haven't seen anything done since I started on this road of trying to make have a fair and equal workplace. I mean, this has been going on for 20 plus years and nothing has been done. Nothing.
And this lawsuit that's been filed, did you try to get SEIU 1021, you're both members of it, to do something legally? I mean, if they're violating the federal law, the union as well could file a lawsuit for damages, couldn't they? Angela?
No, Steve, I'm going to say this again, and it's something that the clients and everybody has to get used to. This has nothing to do with unions. Nothing. The collective racism is outside the realm of a collective bargaining agreement. Collective bargaining agreements only state, I won't treat you differently. I won't discriminate against you, period. It doesn't say, and if I discriminate against you, I am going to pay you $1,000 a day, or I am going to somehow make reparations. It's a dead end because it has no teeth. Discrimination law is above and beyond the CBA and does not have anything to do with the CBA. If it was all about the CBA, this federal lawsuit would be pulled into NLRB. It's not about NLRB. It's not about classifications. It's about the color of their skin. Yeah, and if people don't focus on what it is, then it's never going to be remedied.
Are you saying, Angela, that a union who was fighting discrimination and retaliation, systemic discrimination, they are not entitled to file a federal lawsuit that a city or government agency is engaging in systemic discrimination? Are you saying that they can't do that as a union?
Of course I'm not saying that. I'm saying that anybody that's a citizen of San Francisco, if they have standing, can file a lawsuit. Of course the unions can file a lawsuit. What I'm saying is our federal lawsuit doesn't have anything to do with the collective bargaining agreement at the health department.
Well, that's what I wasn't asking about whether it had anything to do with the collective bargaining agreement. I was asking whether Brenda or Cheryl made an effort or tried to get the union to file such a lawsuit if there's systemic illegal discrimination against Black workers.
But why would they do that as opposed to filing it in their own representation? Well, as their own standing up. You know what I mean?
There's the contract, the union contract. But above that, there's a federal law that says you cannot discriminate against workers because of their race or religion.
And
the union could, if they wanted to, file a lawsuit and says, on top of our, beyond our contract, there's systemic racism and discrimination against Black employees. Have unions done that? I mean, that's the question. Have unions done that?
I have no idea what unions have done that. To me, it's about the individuals. That's why this is not a class action. I don't believe in class actions. Mm-hmm. They came to me as their lawyer. This is how I do things. It's about Cheryl. It's about Brenda. It's about when they go home at night and cry, okay, because of the way they're treated at work. It isn't a union movement. I'm a union person, as you know, from way back. And so is my father as mayor of San Francisco. We're union people. As my old man would always say, we're working stiffs. We got it. I'm with you 100% with the labor unions. But this lawsuit is just about the individuals because of the way they've been treated, because of the color of their skin. They can't change that, okay? They go into work and they don't want to. and they go into work every day being treated differently because of it. Almost any other discriminatory classification, racism is the hardest because it's the hardest on, well, not in all of them, but it's one of the hardest on the individual. So yeah, unions can go out there and file lawsuits. I don't know if they're doing that or not. These lawsuits are no joke. They're a lot of work, and you've got to jump into the head of Mickey Callahan and prove that inside her brain, she has racial animus for my 8 clients. Now, I think we can easily do that. I think her actions are going to be inferences that will not be rebutted. They're going to be inferences of racism, and if they can't rebut them, then the inference of racism is going to lie. It's going to exist. I think we have plenty against them, okay? But it's not easy. And the unions have contracts with cities. It's a whole different arena, Steve. This is individual, let's say you have a disability and you go to work and you say, I've got Parkinson's, and they say, oh, that's really nice, Steve. We love you very much. 2 months from now, you get terminated. Out of the blue, you've been there 40 years. This is Ralph Barbieri's case, okay? Now, as Steve, a union member, do you want the union bringing a big union lawsuit, or do you want to be heard? Because the individual being heard is going to affect so many more Black people. Look what my Wonder Bread verdict did. $133 million to 20 African-American men working in the heart of San Francisco in the year 2001. Okay, that verdict rang throughout the board of directors of every major corporation in this nation. And you know what they say? Just don't do that. Go fix that situation. We don't want a Wonder Bread verdict. Okay, so that's the power of the individual versus it being a union. Now, I know in your heart, Steve, you want it to be a union. I got that. It's in my heart too. It's in my heart too. But what I do for a living, actually, I did represent NUHW against SEIU, and I took that main guy's deposition, the bully, Dave Regan, and we had a video of that guy where he was just screaming about the retaliation against all the NUHW healthcare workers, and it was gold. It was dynamite. The guys he's not, see, people use the word bully, but it's much, much more because it's so discriminatory, it can ruin people's lives. So, I'm with you on that, but in my cases, I do groups. I don't do class actions because my clients are individuals, and I try not to take more than 8. Right now, I have over 50 intakes from the city. And, I act like a bank. These things are very expensive, but all those people need help. So I need to decide, how are we going to help those people? How are we going to have fine lawyers that are going to fight to the max for those individual people? It isn't easy. It isn't easy.
In the past in San Francisco, unions have actually fought racism and segregation on the jobs. In fact, the Marine cooks and stewards,
oh sure,
which represented workers, they didn't allow at one time Black workers to work on ships in the United States. And the Marine cooks and stewards union said to the owners, well, your ship is not going to sail unless it's integrated.
Yeah, I know.
They took work action.
I
the same
know.
thing could be done among public workers. They could take work action as collectively and say, you're going to stop this discrimination. You're going to fire these managers who are illegally discriminating against people, and you're going to defend the Black workers. So it can be done.
That's what this lawsuit is. Callahan just retired. That's what this is. I hear the second in command retired. Another person that's in the firefighting case that we have. The 2 African-American engineers are working on the fireboat at the Firehouse 35. That guy retired too. They're retiring because they know we're coming after them. But if the city, in other words, Steve, look at it this way. If I had won Mayor of San Francisco every single one of those people would be terminated, period. When I ran for mayor in 2018, I said, you have to fire the director of DPW. He's in jail now, but in 2018, he wasn't. You need to fire him. You need to fire the head of MTA, and you need to fire the head of Mickey Callahan. Okay, everybody said, oh, that's terrible that you're saying that. Oh, that's terrible. No, the only way you're going to get change in those department heads is to get rid of the racism, get rid of the bigots.
Well, how do you explain the fact that we have a black mayor and we have black Michael Brown was executive director of the Civil Service Commission. He's now head of the Department of Public Health. I mean, you have people who are black, and yet you're saying they themselves are allowing racism, systemic racism in the city and county of San Francisco?
You know, Steve, you got to ask them that. You got to ask them that. But every single major case I've had against the largest corporations in this world always has a black lawyer sitting at the table.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You know, that goes back to what that when I talk to these individuals, these same people that you're talking about, you know, they're dealing with the same thing we are. It doesn't matter what job you have. And that's the point. Doesn't matter what job you have, we're all going.
The elected officials have the opportunity to do the right thing. It's up to them to do it.
And the elected officials, you think they're going to be held accountable, Angela, if you win your lawsuit? Because the city has spent probably over $100 million on lawsuits.
That is
illegal
despicable.
Action. I mean,
that's despicable, and that's because they won't fire. Let's take, for example, Mickey Callahan, okay? What would it have cost? There was a rally in June of 2019, a year ago, June, okay? The rally was full of black people with posters saying, terminate Mickey Callahan, get rid of Mickey Callahan, okay? What would it have taken them to do that? Because the people that were saying that had very, very profound evidence of racism by Mickey Callahan. Why wouldn't they say, Mickey, see you later? Why wouldn't they investigate it? And if they found racism, fire her? Because there's favoritism and every other kind of ism going on where they don't fire people. Look at Mohammed Nuru. It was obvious things were wrong at DPW. Was anybody going to fire him? Oh no, he's everybody's best friend. You know, same with that guy at MTA. You know, how long is Van Ness Avenue going to be torn up? How long? How long? I mean, would you tolerate that if it was your project? You'd fire him. No, the city doesn't do that. They keep the bad apples. And that's true in almost every single department.
Well, you're also talking about systemic corruption, not only systemic racism. They have a lot of skeletons in their closets, and they're probably afraid to, if they fire somebody, they'll spill the beans on the corruption and nepotism and everything else that's going on in the city.
You know, I was telling some of my clients yesterday, I said, you know, and some of the lawyers, and some of the people from the public, it was at a meeting that was public. I said, you know, I think the hardest thing in these cases that I'm taking on, which I haven't done in my life, because I was hoping the city officials would do it, but it's obvious they won't. The hardest thing is going to be getting around the corruption. You know, trying to stay focused on racism, and then we keep banging our heads on with corruption. You know, that's already happened in 2 of my cases. And so, you know, we got to go back and amend the complaint and add corruption. But I want to focus on racism. And there's so much corruption that you just keep running into it. It's absolutely, it's amazing. You know, I'll tell you one thing, Steve, it makes me feel good. It's the one reason I've won for mayor 3 times, and there's no way they were going to let me get that position. No way. And they know there's no pictures of me anywhere. They got nothing on me, and I'm going to come in and do what's good for our city. So I think I have found a way where we are going to be able to represent these wonderful workers, and stop the way they're being treated.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for joining us on Work Week. And it is a terrible situation that black workers have been treated with this kind of action that is actually harmed their lives physically, emotionally, and is a threat to not just themselves, but all working people, the public.
Right,
If you terrorize workers, black workers, you're terrorizing the public. And
right.
I hope you're successful. And I hope, obviously, the city is again going to probably spend millions of dollars fighting this lawsuit, which again,
Oh, absolutely.
the taxpayers are going to end up. Well, maybe the
Yeah.
demand should be settle the lawsuit and let's not go through the whole legal process of paying other lawyers millions of dollars to fight this lawsuit,
Well,
which is a waste of money.
Steve, how about investigating complaints? How about if they just investigated the complaints, when truly investigated it fairly, instead of all these ridiculous committees, investigate the complaint, find racism, and act on it?
There you go.
Why
Yeah,
didn't they do that?
Well, that
Yep.
sounds like what Brenda and Cheryl have been asking for.
I know, but why didn't the city do it? Why isn't there a supervisor that would insist the city do it?
Well, I think that part of the answer is the corruption. Sean Ellsberg and their officials who want to attack the city workers. They want to, particularly, they want to attack the unions, workers, the public workers. They want to privatize, outsource the work, turn it over to nonprofits. They want to get rid of public workers. I mean, there is an economic incentive for the city to get rid of public workers, and particularly frontline workers, and put them into nonprofits where they're paid 30, 40% less.
Well, there you go, Steve. Get out there. Get out there and stop them. That's how you've been doing a great job. I've listened to all your videos. You've been doing a great job. You know, just keep standing up.
Well, I think that's what people have to do. If you're going to have any change, you have to keep standing up. So
You do. You do.
that's the only
It's
way.
been a real pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Work Week, Brenda, Barros, Cheryl Thornton, and Angela Alioto. Thank you for joining Work Week.